Home and away spoilers. Marley accuses Iluka of theft. Next week on Home and Away in the UK, as Marley learns the real reason that his brother is in town, Justin's car is stolen. Is Iluka to blame? Marley's suspicions about Iluka's visit to Summer Bay are proven correct this week, as his big brother admits the real reason he's come to town. Finding Iluka sat in his living room after he broke into the farmhouse, Marley wasn't convinced that he had come down to Summer Bay purely to have a catch-up. He rang sister Alandra, who confirmed that Iluka had got into some strife back home in Mantaray Point. Realizing that he wouldn't be able to pull the wool over Marley's eyes, Iluka told him that he got caught up in a police raid whilst hanging out with some of his neighbors, the notorious Allen siblings. The Allens had been dealing in stolen car parts, which Iluka said he didn't have much involvement with, but when Iluka was released without charge, the Allens had apparently thought of him as a grass. Marley agreed to let Iluka lie low, and has kept girlfriend Rose in the dark, though also has yet to inform Iluka that she is a cop. The family have not had a good history with the police, ever since Iluka went off the rails after a footy injury blew his chances of becoming pro. Iluka had resorted to drinking and violence, but it was claimed that the local law enforcement continued to unfairly target both Iluka and his siblings as he attempted to get his life back on track. Iluka has found a distraction whilst in the bay though, in the form of Kirby. Sparks flew between the pair as he introduced himself to her at the board shop, and next week she can't help but watch as Iluka works out in the beach in front of her. Rose comments that Iluka's being pretty obvious, but Kirby has no complaints. When Marley confirms to Rose that Iluka still doesn't know about her occupation, she warns him that he needs to be told, pointing out that she's working tomorrow and he may well see her in uniform. As Rose quizzes Iluka on his plans, he explains that he was told about some NRL trials up in Queensland during a recent game of footy, and with his knee holding up, he's hoping to give it a try. Rose is impressed that Iluka's trying to make something of his life, but Marley can't help but think it's a pipe dream, pointing out Iluka's age and how competitive the trials are. When Iluka is later introduced to Theo, he's intrigued to hear that he works in the local garage, and the two are soon talking about cars. Marley is uneasy after hearing him talk about the garage, his brother's dalliance with the Allens and their stolen car parts in the forefront of his mind. Iluka eventually invites Kirby to a gig, and after she previously warned him that she isn't a cheap date, she points out that there's a band playing that night that she'd like to see but the tickets are expensive. Iluka says that's not a problem and it's a date. Could this be the start of a new romance? Meanwhile, outside the club, Justin is horrified when he spots his ute being driven down the road. He calls out but it's in vain, and as he explains to Marley that someone's just stole his car, Marley can't help but fear the worst. As Justin explains everything to Rose, Marley confronts Iluka outright. Did you steal a ute? Iluka tells his brother to go to hell. Both Justin and Marley are left with egg on their faces when Leah later returns and reveals that it was her in the ute. She had borrowed it and rang Justin to tell him, but he hadn't picked up the call. Marley heads back to Iluka and admits that he got it wrong, but asks what was he supposed to think. He's been involved with the Allens, his talk with Theo could have been sussing out whether the garage could be a viable place to strip cars, and he has the money to take Kirby to an expensive gig. Iluka tells Marley that he has his own cash, and returns from his room with a bag stuffed with $8,000. It turns out having his own cash was a bit of an exaggeration, as it transpires that the story about the Allens wasn't true. He instead decided to borrow the money from them, and is planning to pay it back when is offered an NRL contract. Marley can't believe what he's hearing. Iluka has put them all in danger by stealing money from the lowlife Allens, and he must be deluded if he thinks they're just going to let him get away with it. Marley then decides that it's time to drop his own bombshell. Rose is a cop. How will Iluka deal with this little revelation?
Các bạn vừa theo dõi một sản phẩm của Home and Away Spoiler Today. Xin chào.